Okay, we are at 2 o'clock and I think we can go ahead and get started here. So my name is David Garvey and I'm a content manager with Illinois workNet, and today we'll be going over the virtual job fair dashboard, from managing it, the process flow, and other resources available. And this will be the first training session, and it will be recorded. We will also hold more training sessions in the near future. So today we're going to do a review of the tools and resources, and then have a question and answer session at the end. But first, I wanted to turn things over to Patty Schnorr with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, who will say a few words about the background and context of the virtual job fair on Illinois workNet. Patty, if you're talking, it appears that your phone is muted.
Hi, can you hear me now, David?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Hi, it's Patty Schnorr. For those that don't know me, I work for the Department of Commerce and Employment and Training, as David said, and oversee the technology and performance for WIA Title I, Adult Dislocated Worker and Youth Training and Services and Reporting to Department of Labor. And I also oversee the contractual agreement between DCEO and Southern Illinois University, which includes the Illinois workNet. So we're happy to have everyone here today. I appreciate your time and for zooming in and joining us. The page that you see on the screen right now is a very brand new initiative from the Illinois Governor's Office called Get Hired Illinois. I'm sure many of you, if not all, have been familiarized with it. This has been kind of a whirlwind of a project, and it's basically we knew we needed to jump to and find a way to start assisting those throughout our state that have been affected and impacted by the COVID pandemic, as far as layoffs and the employers, et cetera. So it was a very first initiative that was we were asked to, work on and get done very quickly. So it came kind of in the middle of April that we were asked to create a virtual job fair board, and that was going to be introduced via Governor Pritzker's new Get Hired launch site, as you see on the screen here. So this whole portal was created brand new, and on May 14th, Governor Pritzker announced it. It's an initiative with Department of Commerce, Illinois Department of Employment Security, and along with Illinois workNet platform being utilized, and also it connects to the Illinois Job Link, the IDES site. So it's not actually its own entity and site of its own. It's just connecting employers and job seekers to the various links throughout the state of workforce and training and job seeking tools. So one of the newest features on there then is what we're focusing in on today is a virtual job fairs. That platform was also created brand new as part of this initiative. And so what you're going to be, David's going to be showing you today is the site, the portal, however we want to describe it. But it was established and set up very, quickly, but with thought in mind, and we reached out to as many of the local areas as we could, and got a hold of as many users, resources as we could under the circumstances that we normally build something out like this over, maybe 6 months. So we were under a strict timeline and a tight one, so we did what we could to get as many people involved as we could, also being tedious and knowing that this is something that the governor was going to be announcing, and that we wanted it to be him as the one who was the first one to discuss and announce the launch. So we didn't want to ruin that, spoil that as well. So it's a place where employers can look for a free and easy way to advertise and connect remotely with qualified job applicants. It's a venue at their disposal for personalized web-based job fair events. In the same sense, job seekers will also have a free and easy way to see immediate job openings, interact directly with employers, human resource coordinators, a way for them to access that employer's available positions and see it in a new transparency so that they can get connected. And then we also have the facilitating of the virtual job fairs themselves. So an employer has the autonomy to set up their own virtual job fair booth and do this their own, or they can get assistance with setting them up through the Illinois workNet team. We initially launched with about 70 employers, and I think this week was our first week of maybe getting some job fairs actually rolled out. We are really looking forward to continually rolling this out to the state. Again, appreciate your participation today. The goal in mind is that it's not just, Illinois workNet and a couple agencies at the state level doing this. We want to do a train the trainer approach as we move through this, that the local areas themselves have the ability to go in and set things up and work with their employers in their area, because you all know the people and those needs in your area the most. So to be able to go in and have a tool that you can virtually bring employers to job seekers, especially during this time of quarantine and separation, we wanted to have a tool out there that was usable for everybody. We definitely invite all feedback. There's nothing that you're going to say that's going to hurt our feelings or upset us. We want this to be something that is usable, that evolves over time, that people can maybe set up some strategies for their job fairs by sector, by industry, by geographic locations, by whatever possible strategies come along that people think of. So any feedback that you have, we definitely are welcoming, and we want to keep making it become the perfect tool for all of those in the state and help get some employers some new human resources and help those job seekers get jobs. And with that, I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you very much, Patty. So this was the virtual job fair landing page. It's accessible through the Get Hired site here, this virtual job fairs here button. We'll link to this page, and the URL for this is illinoisworknet.com/virtual job fairs. And another way to access this is if we go to the main Illinois worknet, worknet.com homepage, you'll see excuse me, a few different sections here for employers, job seekers, and virtual job fair. I'm kind of just going through these tabs to see where these buttons go. For the different audiences, we have the Explore. For under employer, we have Explore resources. Clicking this will open the quick start guide for employers that shows available resources that are on Illinois workNet. There's the other button here is the Setup Virtual Job Fair. And this will link to a page where employers get step-by-step instructions on how to create an employer booth with the virtual job fair portal. And then under the job seeker section, we have Explore Resources, which is a quick start guide for job seekers on the different resources that are available for them on Illinois workNet based on their needs. And the other button we have under job seekers is Build Your Resume. And this will open to the page where we have our resume writing guide that walks individuals through every step in the resume writing process, from designing, writing, and creating it with the resume builder tool that we have. And then the virtual job fair section, we have two buttons here. We have Set Up Virtual Job Fair, which again goes to that page where employers have these step-by-step instructions to set up their employer booth. And the other button is Search Virtual Job Fairs. And this will take us to the page that we saw, the virtual job fair landing page. And this page, there's two sections at the top, Set Up Virtual Job Fairs. And then I'll go to the instructions for employers to set up a booth. and then search virtual job fairs. And that'll send you down the page to the employer booth section. And here you can search for employer booths that, by name. You can filter by industry. You can also search by location or address. And what you'll see here is this is sorted alphabetically, the listing of approved employers that are hiring in Illinois, along with the number of job openings that they have. And so taking a quick look at employer booth, you have the name at the top, social media links, if they're entered, will appear here. You have physical and website location for that employer. Under job information, you'll see the number of openings along with a link to that employer's job posting page, and as well as the industry that they are affiliated with. Then a little bit further down, we have a description of the employer contact information of who job seekers can reach out to if they have any questions. If there are any upcoming virtual job fair events that the employer has added or that we have that we're helping facilitate, that'll appear here under upcoming virtual job fairs. For recorded virtual job fair events, these can be uploaded to this section here, archive VJF videos. And then if there's any supplemental resources about the job application process, or maybe the about us or mission statement of an organization, those can be added to these sections here for documents and links. And so that's what the public, the job seekers, will see this view. And so going back to this landing page here, we also have the calendar of upcoming virtual job fair events. These are the ones that have been scheduled, and we're still in the process of scheduling these virtual job fair events. And so more are going to be added to this calendar when they are scheduled with the employer. A few other resources I want to share that I'll provide in a follow-up to this. We also have a few different articles for job seekers and employers for preparing for a virtual job fair and also attending. And so for preparing for a virtual job fair, this is the job seekers article. We have a previous introductory webinar where we covered an overview of the virtual job fair tool, along with the PowerPoint that was used in that presentation. And then we also have this article broken out into sections of, if they don't know much about a virtual job fair, we talk about what to expect, how to be prepared, things, action items that they can do to be ready and prepare for the online event. And so that's preparing. And then we also have an article for job seekers on attending a virtual job fair, and similarly organized, what they can expect, what they should do, and next steps that they can take after the event, along with additional resources on Illinois WorkNet that they may find helpful. And then similarly for employers, we have preparing for virtual job fairs. This is a previous webinar of an overview of the virtual job fair tool, along with the PowerPoint that was used. And then things that they can do to prepare for the event, such as planning their agenda, allowing time to make sure that they say everything they would like to during their event, along with if there's any time for the attendees to ask questions, to make sure they test their equipment, if they're sharing their camera, that they're dressed professionally and the lighting and the space is appropriate, along with additional resources. And then finally, the other article we have is attending the virtual job fairs for employers. And again, this is what they can expect, what to do, and next steps after the virtual job fair event is held. And so while while there have been, a few posts on social media and some announcements about the virtual job fair portal, we do encourage you to reach out to employers within, your LWIA so that they may submit their employer booth so that job seekers can see that they're hiring. And we'll see in a little bit here that employers do have the option to either hold an event in where they will be the only employer present, or if they wanted to, they could be in a job fair event with multiple employers. And so in targeting outreach to employers in your LWIA, you can feel free to focus on a specific industry or group of employers. And if you do find a date that works for all the parties, you can try to hold a handful of virtual job fair events in one afternoon, whether or not that target audience or group of employers is the same. And like Patty had mentioned, this is kind of train the trainers. That's how we're going to start. We're not just going to turn the keys over, and we will help. And what we will do as these virtual job fair events are being scheduled, we're going to help with registration, working with the employer to come up with an agenda, technical assistance on Zoom, and facilitating the webinar. And that way you can attend these virtual job fair sessions and get a sense of how they run, and make sure that you're comfortable when it comes time to that. And then of course there's also sharing social media and posts and creating and sharing flyers about upcoming virtual job fair events as well. And so getting into actually managing the virtual job fair tool, go back to the home page. So you will need an account with Illinois WorkNet, and many of the LWIAs, most of them actually have provided contact information of who should have access from each LWIA to manage and work with the virtual job fair portal. And you can send those to me. Let me share my email address in the chat. That way I can ensure that you have the appropriate access and to manage and use the virtual job fair portal. And so once you do create an account with Illinois WorkNet, if you haven't already, you'll be added to your LWIA's group, and then you'll see employer booths from the dashboard of employers in your area. And so once you do have access, what you'll do to get to the dashboard is you'll log into your Illinois WorkNet account. And under the My Dashboard dropdown, under Personal Tools, you'll see this icon here, VJF, Virtual Job Fair, and you'll click on that. And so this will take you to the dashboard area where you can manage employer booths that have been submitted. And entries in this dashboard will be from organizations that have a physical address within your LWIA. And so to filter through, some of the features of the dashboard, you can show 10, 25, 50, or 100 entries at a time. You can sort by the approval status to see which ones have been approved and which ones have not been approved. You can also see all. And then there's the other filter for active, expired, or archived to see which booths are active and publicly showing, which booths have expired, and which ones have been archived. And so you can also search by the organization's name. That's the search on the right here, if you need to quickly find an employer booth. And so some of the other high-level information you'll see on this page includes the name and address of the employer, the employer booth ID, the status of the employer booth, the date the employer booth entry was submitted, and the start and end dates of when that employer would like to have their booth publicly shown on that virtual job fair landing page. And so on the right, we have, in this last column, we have actions. And these are the different actions you can take for these employer booths. And so going through these, we have the booth details, edit employer booth information, and then cloning or copying this booth. So going into the first one here for booth details, that'll open up an entry page like this. And this provides an overview of the information that has been entered for the employer booth page. On the left, you'll see the address. This should be shown publicly. The employer website, the employer job posting website, the number of available positions, the industry that employer is affiliated with, and the company contact information, name, email, and phone number. And then if there are social media links for the employer booth, they'll appear here as well. And then on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see edit details. And this will take you to the entry form that the employer submits when they go through the process of adding their booth for when they submit it. And then we also have a link to a preview of how it will look publicly, which is what we saw earlier during this meeting. A public URL link that you can send and share with others accordingly. The time frame of when this entry will show publicly, and then the managed by, this will show the name of who had actually added the employer booth. And so further down this page, you have the option to add virtual job fairs, documents, and links. And we're going to walk through the features of each of these. So the add virtual job fair button, if you click that, that'll open up a window. You have two options here. You can request assistance hosting a virtual job fair, or you could add your own. And so if employers would like to request virtual job fair assistance, they'll click this first button here, and that'll open up a tab where they will fill out this entry form here. And some of this will be pre-filled, as you'll see in this example here, such as the booth ID, the contact name, the phone number and email address. And then it'll ask the questions, do you need training on how to use Zoom, which our staff will assist with prior to the event. If they have a preferred date or date range for their live event, times that they're available to hold the virtual job fair session, the option to pick whether they would only like to have their company during a job fair event, or if they would be open to having other employers in the same session. If they're interested in scheduling virtual job fair follow-up interview rooms, the target population for this event, if they accept non-English speaking employees, and then if so, will they provide their own translator? And so once this information in the form has been completed, they'll click the blue submit button, and then our staff will then coordinate with that employer the date and time of the virtual job fair event, the registration page, and the webinar meeting information, such as the Zoom URL, call-in number, and meeting ID. And so that is how they will request assistance with a virtual job fair. However, if they'd like to add their own, they can also do that by clicking this button here. And this will open up this window where they will enter the start and end dates of their virtual job fair events, a job fair URL that'll link to a registration page or a page with more information about their job fair event, and the archived job fair URL. Employers can come in, if they've recorded their virtual job fair, they can then post a link to this recording here in this field. And I should say that when we are assisting employers, we will also be recording those job fair events as well. And then we will add those into this field here. And so next on this page, we have add document. And to add documents such as applications or other pertinent documents for the employer's hiring process, what the employer can do would be to add a title to the document that they would like to upload. And then uploading it, they'll click the choose files, navigate to their where the document they would like to upload is stored. And the allowable document types for upload are PDF, Word docs, and Excel. And I should also note that the maximum file size for uploads is 50 megabytes. And so once they've given the title, the document title, and uploaded it here, they'll click the upload file button. And then similarly for adding links, we'll click add link. It will give a title of the page that they're linking to, and then include the link in the URL. And then they can click add. And then adding those will then show publicly on the employer booth detail page. And so then going back to virtual job fair dashboard, the next button that we will cover is the edit booth for employer information. This is what we saw a little bit earlier. This is the form that the employers fill out and submit that includes the information for the public employer booth page, such as the employer name, their website, their number of available positions, the job posting website, the date range for when their employer booth will show publicly, as well as a logo for that organization. And then in here, they will include a description. There's the employer FEIN field. It is not required, but it is optional for them to enter. Then there's the address section, standard address, city, state, zip code. And they, as employers are submitting, they won't have to worry about the LWIA because when they enter the zip code, this section will automatically populate for their the LWIA that they're situated in. And then down here we have, they can select one or more industries that they are affiliated with and add them here. And then there's the employer contact information area, name, email address, phone number. Then there's also social media links here as well for Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. And as they're submitting their entry form, they will not see this archived and approved section. We're only seeing that because I have access to archive or approve the review process, and LWIA staff that are designated to have access will also see this. And so when it does come time for you to go through and review the employer information and make sure it's accurate and appropriate, all you would do is check this box and then click Save and Submit. And then that employer booth will be publicly showing on their page as well. And we also do have, this has come up a few times, we have a note here about staffing agencies. And this platform will allow staffing agencies to participate unless job seekers are charged by that agency for the services that they receive. Staffing agencies that charge businesses for their services or require job seekers to create a free account to receive services will be allowed to participate in the virtual job fair platform. And so if there are any, during the review process, if there are any discrepancies or if you have any questions or follow-up, you can reach out to the individual from that organization who submitted this for any clarification or if more information is needed. And then going back to the last button over here, this is the Clone This Booth. And this will create a copy of the employer booth. And this would be used in situations where an employer would like to create a copy of an existing booth and edit that further rather than generating a new one and writing that information again. And a couple examples of this would be if the employer booth expired and they don't want to enter that same information again, but there's some minor changes to make, they can create a copy and then edit accordingly. Another example would be if a company had multiple locations. I believe one of them is Speedway gas stations. They have booths for different locations in Illinois. So rather than duplicating the process, they can link directly to that entry for that location. And then what do I have next? And so what we will do, we hope to have this up by next week, is to have an automation or automatic emails going. So when an employer submits a booth, the employer will receive an email that their booth will be reviewed and then approved or not approved in the next 2 business days. And then after that, they receive that email for submitting it. And then we'll also have an email going out to the appropriate staff who will have access to this dashboard. They will also receive an email that an employer booth has been submitted. And so once you go through and review the process, review what the employer submitted, you will check the approved box, click Save and Submit Employer Booth, and then that employer will receive an email that their booth has been approved and is now available for the public to see on the virtual job fair landing page. And it'll also include information for them to log in and edit and notify them that they can then request virtual job fair assistance or add their own. Then we're also going to have an email that will show updates, what updates have been made to different employer booths. Is more kind of just so like informational, so you can keep an eye on it to make sure everything is appropriate there. And then we'll also, similar to other tools we have on Illinois WorkNet, we'll also have an email that'll send out on a consistent basis of here are the employer booths that have been submitted in your LWIA that need to be reviewed and approved. And just kind of that reminder that way. Employer submissions don't get buried and forgotten about. And as far as the overview, I believe that is all that I had to say. So I think I can go ahead and open it up to questions. See, there's been a few in the chat, and I think Olivia may have answered both of those. Marketing materials. Are there any marketing materials already developed for this? We are in the process of finalizing the flyers that will be used. And once those are finalized, we can post them and share them with you. That way you have them. How will the job posting be monitored so postings do not remain posted that may have been filled? So it looks like Olivia had answered that. Each booth is set up with a start and end date so that the booths don't remain active for too long without the employer coming back and making updates as needed. We also include an informational bubble on the public view, which I'll pull up now. That will show users the number of positions that have been identified, that this was done when the booth was created and is subject to change. Which we have on the employer booth page right here, that little notice there. So those are all the questions in the chat. Are there any other questions? Well, if there aren't any other questions, I suppose we can start talking about this.
David?
Oh, yeah.
This is Todd. I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself, probably to the delight of most, but I'm getting called away, but I have two questions in regards to reporting. So for our WIOA federal reporting, how are we tracking employer penetration services that will obviously be gained by this? And then, and it's probably a Patty question at this point, but the job seekers, since we track through wage records on retention and so forth, how are we tracking those numbers? Are we tracking them?
I would, yeah, I believe those are Patty questions. I know we're working on some surveys to send after the virtual job fair events, but as far as tracking those numbers.
That was cute. I was going to say, Todd, do you want to say anything? And then you unmuted. This is Patty again. So effectiveness of serving employers, that's an annual reporting indicator for those that aren't as familiar with it as they are with some of the other performance reporting indicators, that the penetration in employers that we report, you have in any reporting a numerator and a denominator. So the denominator is that we get for that particular rate is from IDES, and that would be all the businesses in the state of Illinois. So when you think of that, it's we go by the BLS information that they submit. So it's around 365,000 businesses in that denominator. And so the numerator, then we try to, through our partners, pull different files. And so what Todd's asking here is that, we have a bunch of businesses listed in here, and how can we get these businesses put into the numerator of that to show that we're counting them? So we definitely, Todd, will have a file that we can pull and put into the equation with the rest of those businesses that we hand out to Sergio at the end of the year. Does that answer that?
Yeah, pretty much. And then the other question comes down to, you know, and that's the other half of that effectiveness in serving employers is the retention number. So how are we tracking the job seekers? Because we're going to have to pull obviously we pull wage records for that for second and fourth quarter exits. And that was my only question. Yeah,
they'd have to be enrolled in, for us, they'd have to be enrolled in a WIA or Title I.
Okay.
That we would be doing, that we're matching wage data to. So we aren't, and it's, I think, somewhere down the road, because we had another VJF meeting earlier this morning. Somebody asked about, you know, how can we come back and, you know, tally up those that got a job based on their attendance at the virtual job fair. And that's something that we're going to have to work closer with you guys with at IDES to kind of figure that out of maybe how we can connect the dots between Illinois Job Link and what activity is going on in this area to maybe better, you know, to, I don't know if it comes down to like loading that into JobLink or, you know, some way of counting that information or figuring out that Patty Schnorr went to this virtual job fair and I got a job and I was on UI and kind of telling that story. So we definitely want to get to that data analytical type information, but it probably won't be till about version 2.0 or 2.5 at this point.
And I understand that, and this is probably a conversation to be tabled for later, but I was wondering if, you know, maybe we can start thinking about how we can capture these individuals and businesses in a systematic way that'll get that information and we don't lose stuff. That was the only reason I was bringing it up.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate bringing it up. That's like I told them at the earlier meeting today, Olivia and I had, it was like definitely if like people are in there and like I don't see Illinois Job Link or the screen, so it's like, or if they're seeing somewhere where, hey, this needs to connect, right here is where if I had that information connected between these systems, you know, bring it up, let us know. So I'm not saying I can, but I'm saying I'll darn well give it a shot and try and see if those, if we can figure that out.
Thank you.
Let's see another question in the chat. Is there anything that links these postings with JobLink? And so on that page that we were showing earlier, this Get Hired Illinois, we do have a few other buttons here. Job seekers click here, employers click here, and those will open up the Illinois Job Link page for job seekers and employers to log in. But
and that's probably, David, another question related to the fact that, like, if we're not going to, virtual job fair, what's not going to do is duplicate or step in and try to be what Illinois Job Link is for the state. That's, you know, where we get the UI. It's where we log into that. That's where we're, you know, putting resumes in and tracking the jobs via our state system. That's its purpose. Virtual job fairs were created to complement and to be a resource in addition to Job Link, and the fact that people used to, you know, we'd set up a we'd set up a job fair at a physical location and then invite people to go to that location. And so in this realm and this world, this pandemic we're living in, and even, you know, beyond that, it's like, what can we set up and what can we have, because people can't meet face to face, they can't meet in a public building. So this is to be thought of more as, this is your public building. This is a location that people can go and have that actual job fair. So there's no real connectivity yet between, I posted my resume and I put my employment needs and posted that into Illinois Job Link. Would we like to have that down the road? We definitely do. But for now, just kind of think of it as that space that you could go have that meeting place at.
Hey, Patty, this is Lee Reese.
Hi, Lee.
Would it be helpful, or would it be possible that when the term of the job fair, virtual job fair ends, that an automatic email go out to the contact person for the business to ask them how many people they were able to hire?
We can do that. You know, I mean, that's crossed my mind as well. Like, you know, having the person that, you know, so I'd love to have success stories from job seekers and employers both. You know, I think we will have that tool, part of it in there, but then it's always up to self-reporting at that point in time, which is, you know, not bad, but it's not reliable. But at least we have something that we could look at and go with. But like, I think the main goal is to get more to of like, I know that Patty Schnorr, I can look in Illinois Job Link, and I know that Patty Schnorr signed in there, and she filled out a resume, and she was correct in UI, and she's now got a job. That's an IDES system. And then you would look at this virtual job fair and say, oh, Patty Schnorr was also in here, and she went to a virtual job fair right about that same time. And oh, the employer that she had the interview with was the employer she's now employed with. So it's connecting those kind of dots that we'd like to do, but we can definitely have a self-reporting feature in here. And also, Lee, I don't know, like down the road, like not immediately, but thinking about the apprenticeship, I'm glad you're on today, like the apprenticeship and, you know, matching with all the navigators and things like that. It's like, I'm just throwing it out there. You don't need to answer right now. Be more on some more apprenticeship calls. But when you're saying, thinking about that, would this be something that we could down the road also use for getting apprenticeship to apprentice?
Yes.
Potential, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've actually thought about a way to use, like having a virtual job fair apprenticeship event down
Yeah.
there. So I'm looking at putting something together on that.
Cool.
Any other questions?
And I want to throw in too, we are so appreciative of, like, since Todd's on, I just want to say a big thanks to him again. Like, him and the business services people at IDES have been a great help in getting this launched successfully as well, helping get businesses on there initially, and also exceptional input as far as, you know, setting them up. And they have a lot of experience, obviously, of boots on the ground and doing the job fair. So we've relied on them quite a bit to help us through this process and continue that partnership and to continue making this a success throughout the state.
Well, if there are no other questions, I can talk about some of the next steps here. If you have not sent me any contacts for who should have access to the virtual job fair dashboard, please feel free to do so. You can email me at david.garvey, GARVEY@siu.edu. I'm sharing my email address in the chat there. And like I said, this webinar is being recorded, and we will upload that to YouTube and share the link with you all in the event that there was members of your staff who were not able to attend this afternoon's webinar. And like I said, this is the first training session, and we will hold more in the near future. So we can let you know when that is happening as well. And you should hear.
Yes, it's definitely an ongoing process. And, you know, again, we want this to be a success. We have point people for many of the LWIAs, but some of them we don't. I think David will probably be following up with especially with the ones that we don't right now, because we certainly don't want anybody kind of left behind or in that matter. Again, thinking of strategies, you know, in your area and things like that as far as sectors and different ways to maximize, I guess, this tool to bring in as many employer and job seeker connection successes as possible. It's very helpful at this point in time. yeah, we will have many more of these training sessions. And oh, that's the other side. There was something else in my mind. I mean, if you have something and you just want to do, you know, a one-on-one discussion, please feel free to, you know, email myself or Olivia, David, and, you know, we'll set up time to just talk about it independently as well if you need that. More than happy to do that. Thank you all. I'm going to sign off for my part.
Thank you, Patty. There was one question in the chat. Did you say this will go live next week? The virtual job fair system, this is all online. As far as next week, that's more to get you and your staff access to look around to look around and start encouraging and getting employers entered into the system that are in your LWIA and editing and approving that whole process. And we still have a few more emails to set up that'll be notifications for those who have access to the virtual job fair system as well. And that'll be next week. But if there are no other questions, I think we can end a few minutes early. I will send a follow-up to those who participated in this webinar, and I want to thank you all for joining. Please feel free to email us if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.